After what seemed like such a long offseason, week 1 came and went in the blink of an eye. The closest matchup was between Eric Niss and Kyle Ernsberger. Between Peyton and Demarius and CJ Anderson, no one on the Broncos really had a good game. This matchup was ultimately decided on Monday night, where the two teams' defenses played each other. Eric's weekly drunken Saturday night pickup gave him just enough of an edge over Don't Hate the Slayer, Hate the Game. Eric won by half a point and earns the Skin in Your Teeth trophy. But these teams are going to need more than 80 points a week in order to win the Shiva. According to ESPN's projections, the closest matchup was supposed to be between Joey and Luke, and this matchup delivered. It started off on Thursday night when these two quarterbacks were going head to head. Tom Brady gave Luke an early lead, but Mark Ingram was typical Mark Ingram. Also, Deshaun Jackson got injured early in the first quarter. Why Joey drafted him in the first place is a different matter entirely. And their shit talking during the week added to the drama. Going into Monday night, Adrian Peterson needed only 15 points from Peterson and Wallace combined, but came up just short. Luke slobbed all up on that tiny little cob. Maybe Luke should have taken Carlos Hyde with his first pick. Hyde got 29.5 points against the Vikings, winning Curtis the MVP trophy. Curtis also wins the highest point total of the week. The scary thing is, some of his players could have done much, much better. Captain America gets the win over Mike, who is managing his very first fantasy team. Other than the Colts defense and Eli Manning, Mike's team had a pretty solid performance. Yes, Jordan Matthews did score that touchdown, but it wouldn't have made a difference. Welcome to fantasy football. The biggest blowout goes to Team Thor over Calvin Klein. Adam's team had huge games from Julio Jones and Chris Ivory. I have to ask, are Chris Ivory, Carlos Hyde, and Marcus Mariota really that good, or is it just because they played the worst teams in the NFL? Timmy's team has a lot of room for improvement, but getting blown out wasn't a result of his team doing bad. It was mostly because Adam's team did so well, hopefully well enough so that Adam doesn't have to go back to the Sacco Bowl this year. Speaking of Sacco, Nick is right back into his old habit of losing. He started last season with 6 straight losses, and at least one this season. Team Spider-Man can't wait for Le'Veon Bell to return. Will Tate's team gets the win, even with a kicker as his top scorer, but Will could use some more points from Melvin Gordon and Calvin Johnson in the future. My team got a solid win behind Gronkowski and DeAndre Hopkins. Kyle Basic got big points from Matt Forte and Matt Bryant, but that was about it. Kyle, you going to start Mariota next week? In week 2, it's Adam versus Brian, Eric versus Kyle Basa, Joey versus Kyle Ernsberger, Timmy versus Will, Luke versus Curtis, and Nick versus Mike. I'm going to post and update those charts every week starting next week. They aren't too interesting to look at with only 1 week's worth of data. But here's something else I've been working on. Assuming that every team has a 50% chance of winning each matchup, the expected record to make playoffs at the beginning of the season is 7-6. If you go 7-6, you're in the playoffs. Before week 1, the probability of making playoffs, of each team is 50%. But after week 1, so if you have a 1-0 record, it jumps up to 61.3%. And if you lose, you have an 0-1 record, you have a 38.7% chance of making playoffs. But not to fear losing teams, a win next week will jump you right back up to 50%.